Bows in Warframe can be incredibly satisfying. We all secretly want to live out our archer fantasies, and I think Warframe does that pretty well. Some bows hit like a truck, wiping out entire corridors with a single arrow. So I thought, why not make a top 5 bows list? But before we get into the list, there are a couple of things I'd like to speak about when it comes to using bows in this game. First is Longbow Sharpshot. This is a bow-specific arcane that states, on headshot gain 300% damage on your next shot. Now this may not seem like much on paper, or so you think. This damage bonus is actually multiplicative to base damage mods like Serration as well as Arcane Rage, but it will not multiply with gun CO mods like Aptitude, unfortunately. All in all though, this arcane is a massive increase in damage with bows. Many builds in this video will have a Longbow Sharpshot variant because it is that powerful. But please, as you're watching this, if you're someone who wants to not rely on headshots or does not have the arcane or it's too expensive, by all means go ahead and use something like Merciless or Deadhead to have a more budget version. So just keep that in mind when you see all of the builds in this video. But this leads me on to my next point. Projectile speed. Personally, for me, the biggest issue that I find with bows in Warframe is the projectile speed. Because it is an arrow being launched, sometimes the projectile speed is just not it. You'll find that you have to lead your shots, especially with the Incarnon adapters on some bows trying to get headshots so you can charge the bar, but some enemies have the head size of a peanut. It can be a little bit painful. There are some ways to deal with it, but the number one advice that I can give to make bows feel infinitely better is at least slapping on terminal velocity. This is an extra slot that grants you plus 60% projectile speed. You will need to add an extra form or two for your builds to slot it in, but I do think that it is worth the investment if you have 1 or 2 bows that you personally enjoy. It is not needed at all, it's just a very nice quality of life that I can suggest to make bows feel a bit better. Next up is Split Flights. Another optional mod when using bows is called Split Flights. This is only for non-AoE based bows and a bunch of other bows. We'll go over that list now, but it is especially good with Longbow Sharpshot and Incarnon adapters. Split Flights will replace your galvanized chamber for multi-shot. On hit, plus 100% multi-shot with minus 180% accuracy for 2 seconds, stacking up 4 times. This will only last 2 seconds though, so if you don't enjoy the small window or you're not shooting your bow fast enough, you won't really enjoy this mod as much, so just keep that in mind. Yes, your arrows may go all over the place with the huge amounts of minus accuracy, but in some cases it could be really good. This mod will only be good on bows like Paris Prime Incarnon, Dread, Cinta, and Daikyu, but it will not work on bows like this. If you already have the multi-shot built up, it will allow for multiple hits, meaning it stacks the mod easier, and every time you hit an enemy, it will refresh the 2-second timer. Again, this mod is only useful on certain bows, and it is only useful if you have enough fire rate to sustain this mod. Finally, let's move on to the list. First up is the Nataruk. I struggle to say this word, Nataruk. Anyway, this bow is given to you for free after you complete the New War quest. You get a free Oricon Catalyst with it too. The Nataruk is a perfect free weapon to carry you into Steel Path comfortably. It's a wonderful bow that does a ton of damage and holds up at pretty much any level in this game. It comes with 4 innate Madarai polarities, making it easier for you to form it. There are 3 different types of shots with the Nataruk: a quick shot by tapping it quickly, a charge shot by drawing it all the way until it's fully drawn, and a perfect shot by releasing your shot between this window here on the reticle. This perfect shot will have higher crit chance, crit multiplier over the fully charged shot. Both the charged and perfect shot have a bigger projectile with infinite body punch through. This is one of the things that makes this weapon so special. One thing to take note with the Nataruk is the charged and perfect shot arrow look like they explode on impact, but they actually have no area of effect properties. But the bonus with these 2 types of shots is the hitbox for the projectile is big enough so you can hit headshots easier without having to be super accurate. The stats are overall very good across all different types of shots, and with all the fire modes, the Nataruk deals mainly slash and puncture. Now, if there are a couple of tips that I can give you when using the Nataruk, I'd say use different energy colors that are quite dark so you don't blind yourself when constantly shooting. It's just a bit easier on the eyes when using this weapon for extended periods. Be wary of using too much fire rate. I opted for Vile Acceleration because I prefer the faster fire rate and adapting to the super quick timing, but you do not need to do this. In fact, running Shred with critical delay is perfect, or you can just use Speed Trigger as well. Find a fire rate that is comfortable for you to hit your perfect shots when using this bow. Another thing to take into account is using this bow with teammates utilizing Warframes with buffing abilities that increase your fire rate. This will make it a lot harder to hit that perfect shot, but personally, I just say deal with it when you get there and don't make that stop you from using it. For the builds, I have 5 that I like to showcase to you today. The first one being a budget one, since most of you will receive this bow when you complete the new war and you will not have as many fancy mods just yet. Here is a budget version that will see you through to Steel Path. You do not need terminal velocity, it's just a nice to have. Then we have the Steel Path builds, which we're starting off with Longbow Sharpshot. We have Galvanized Aptitude because guess why? Multiplicative CO scaling on hit with this bow, meaning sick boy fat ass damage. Serration for flat damage bonuses, crit, Vile Acceleration, Elementalist, then Thermite rounds for heat to add another damage of a time element. You could mod for viral heat or corrosive, but personally I think the Nataruk does more than enough damage with just one element. Plus, bows are slow firing, like hard hitting weapons. I don't think it's a good idea to mod for a secondary element because you're not going to apply it as much as you'd like. Then we have a Crux test build that turned out to be pretty decent since the Nataruk does so much damage. The mod for Blast, and on the perfect shot we have 150% status chance. Pair this with primary Cruxes plus 300% status chance, it's pretty big. With the Bane and Elementalist we are doing lots of explosive damage and it's just good fun. We have a Deadhead build for those of you who'd like to use the Old Faithful. This is pretty good for headshots because of the 30% multiplier and how easy it is to headshot with this bow. Finally, a primary Blight setup which works very well. We benefit from Blight's 144% critical damage and 72% multi-shot increase. The Nataruk already has so much crit damage, so this just pushes it even further. It does take time to build up your toxin procs, but when it does, it's pretty big in damage. To wrap up the Nataruk, everyone in Warframe should have this weapon because it's free and it is powerful. One of the funniest synergies is using Mag's Bubble or Zarta's Whisper with the Nataruk, since the projectile has infinite body punch through. You literally get a Dome of Death. Definitely worth building the Nataruk. Then we move on to the Proboscis Cernos. This has always been one of my favorite bows in this game. It's a bit more methodical and slower compared to other weapons, but it's just loads of fun. The Proboscis Cernos launches out an arrow that sticks to whatever surface it lands on. It will launch appendages that latch onto nearby enemies and pulls them in slowly towards the impact zone. The appendages will tick damage twice on all affected enemies before exploding, dealing viral damage on the explosion. It will also deal slash and viral on the ticks as well as what you've modded for. They cannot crit and are not affected by status chance mods like Rifle Aptitude, but the arrows will explode in a 7-meter radius after 1.7 seconds and can benefit from Firestorm. It is important to know that Firestorm only affects the radius of the final blast, but does not affect the range of the appendages that latch onto nearby enemies. This is a status-focused bow with super low crit chance. If you have external buffing or build for crit, it can work quite well considering how many damage instances you have. Arcane Avenger is a good option for external buffing or just using crit based frames. With a base crit of 7% and a crit multiplier of 1.9 times, it's very low, but we have a 43% base status chance, which is quite high. This bow is gas heaven. It's got huge AoE potential, and pairing this with gas because it pulls enemies in is just a match made in heaven. Here is my gas build here paired with Longbow Sharpshot, and you can use other arcanes for base damage scaling or drop serration and so on. Change out the build to what you like. I would highly recommend using Vigilante supplies since the biggest drawback with this bow is having 7 ammo capacity, which can run out quite quickly. Give this build a go, you will enjoy it. A blast setup is loads of fun too. It's not the best, but it's fun when it does proc, because once they all explode, it just chains and everything just pops. An electricity build for Corpus or just general enemies because we have magnetic and viral and electricity. Finally, a budget build for those of you who want to give it a go. This bow can be used with nearly any frame and will do very well with most levels of content. It is more of a shoot in a general area with a group and forget about it type of weapon. It's not going to be explosive and instant killing, but it's going to be a bit slower. It's just attrition, basically. I cannot recommend this weapon enough. Then we move on to the Cinta. The Cinta is a bow that I overlooked for quite some time. You get it from solving the Enigma puzzles in Duviri, or you can buy it from another player. It has a similar behavior with the Nataruk having a quickfire, a charge shot, and a perfect shot. The interesting thing about this bow though is the charge shot has super good stats, but it's just a single arrow. The perfect shot sends out a heat energy wave, knocking down enemies with infinite body punch through. Pairing the Cinta with split flights and Longbow Sharpshot is crazy good. I just modded for pure heat as my main build here and it works wonderfully. The infinite body punch through properties just mow down lines of enemies, and then split flights comes in and just adds to its effectiveness. I will say though, the draw time of the Cinta can be quite slow, so if you do not like split flights as playstyle, switch it out for Galvanized Chamber for more consistency. But guess what? Multiplicative CO scaling once again, which makes the Cinta by far one of the best bows in the game. It also works incredibly well with frame synergies like Mag's Bubble and other abilities. A gas setup, which is perfect for how much damage scaling we have, and also the perfect shot has innate heat from the energy wave, so you could just add Toxin to the build for gas. If you like to hit gas on all shots, you can mod for gas as a whole. But I found that I'm going to be focusing on the perfect shot more often, so that's why I just slapped on Toxin so that I only hit gas on the perfect shot. A blast crux setup works quite well too if you are a blast enjoyer. Finally, a budget build for those of you who like to use it and you don't have the fancy mods. The Cinta is definitely up there as one of the best, lots of fun to use, and you can get it at MR6, which makes it a fantastic early to late game weapon. Then we move on to the Daikyu Prime. I will admit, this is a very niche bow. It's not as diverse and versatile as other bows, but when you take into account how strong this one synergy is, it's hard not to consider using it. The Daikyu Prime has a unique trait that grants weak point hits with 250% critical chance, 3 meters of innate punch through, forced impact on the charge shot and quick shot. But what makes this so special is the stats are very close for the charge shot and the quickfire shots, meaning you can actually just quick tap this bow to spam it like crazy. The only stat difference is the charge shot will do more damage. But wait, there is more with this bow. The Amalgam Daikyu Target Acquired mod is an exclusive Amalgam mod for this bow that grants us plus 75% headshot multiplier and a 60% chance to pick up used arrows. Pair this with Longbow Sharpshot, primary acuity, and well, we have damage like this. But here is the thing though, because of how much damage multipliers we have with the unique trait and Amalgam Daikyu Target Acquired and Longbow Sharpshot, modding for gas is the perfect element because it hits hard, and gas itself benefits from headshot multipliers because of target acquired, so it just goes hand in hand here. Here is the full build. Now you do have two options. You can use Vial Acceleration to have a faster quick fire shots, or drop Vial Acceleration and go another mod instead, but you'll be quick firing slower. Another thing to take note here is because of the forced impact procs, the Daikyu is a perfect option to use internal bleeding, especially since the fire rate is super low if you take off Vial Acceleration. Personally though, I do think gas completely trumps this, so I did not go for internal bleeding. I just don't think it's worth it at all. If you do not like the Acuity version, you can make use of Split Flights or Galvanized Chamber for a multi-shot setup. A budget version would just be no Prime mods and Galvanized mods since the weapon is MR15. When using the Daikyu Prime, it is a wise idea to have Cold on your Primer companion or just maybe a Primer in general to slow enemies down to hit those headshots easier. And remember, you don't need to use the charge shot, you can just tap quickly and then you can pretty much benefit from the same amount of damage. These are just some tips when using the Daikyu Prime. Like I said, it is niche and it is very, channeled into one type of build that is much better with it, but it's still a lot of fun. Finally, we are now going to be talking about the 2 last weapons in the list, even though this is technically a top 5. It's because I'm pairing the Paris Prime and Dread Incarnon together. The reason I decided to do this is the Dread and Paris Incarnon are really similar in how they behave. There are just minor differences, some have different evolutions, and the Dread has an exclusive mod called Unseen Dread. But they both have very high crit, very high status chance, good stats all around, big amounts of damage, and I just don't see why I need to split them. Both Incarnons will shoot out a wide heat energy wave that deals a ton of damage. However, this is where Split Flights, the mod that I've mentioned many times in this video, becomes insanely powerful. With normal multi-shot like Galvanized Chamber, it will only be one projectile hitting with multiple instances of damage. If you use Split Flights within the Incarnon form, the heat waves actually split into multiple heat waves, with multi-shot on each of them. This allows for you to proc Longbow Sharpshot, super easy. You also have infinite body punch through with both Incarnon forms, meaning this procs a lot easier. While yes, the accuracy sucks in some cases, but with the Incarnon form, it's not bad at all. This is incredibly satisfying and increases the effectiveness of these Incarnons. I honestly wish I tried this out sooner because, man, I've even favorited the Paris Incarnon after finding this out. Let's quickly go over the Dread Incarnon first. The evolutions that I went for were Hitman's Opportunity, Swift Deliverance, and Elemental Balance. You can choose and build the Dread for something else if you want to go for other evolutions. For the builds, we of course have a Gas Sharpshot build. With this setup, we do need to use Arcane Rage on our Warframe for base damage scaling. This is because we use Unseen Dread. This mod will grant you 5 seconds of invisibility when you hit more than 3 enemies with a single projectile. And it is really easy to proc this with the Incarnon form. When you are invisible, you deal 175% more crit damage, but this crit bonus is actually not tied to this specific invisibility buff. It can be acquired through any other means of invisibility. You can take this mod off and then put on Serration for base damage scaling. If you don't have split flights, then you could just use Chamber for multi-shot. I use Point Strike here because we have over 100% crit chance and we don't need to lose out on the minus 20% fire rate that with critical delay. I just don't think it's worth it, so that's why I chose Point Strike. One other thing you could do is drop Vile Acceleration for fire rate and put it on your Warframe and use Spectral Serration with Unseen Dread and Split Flights and get that huge damage boost with Longbow Sharpshot. The next setup is a Blast Crux, very good, and a Corrosive Heat setup. There aren't really budget versions of Incarnon since you need Steel Path for Incarnon weapons, and you should have at least got the respective mods besides maybe Unseen Dread. There is one important aspect that I want to talk about when it comes to the Incarnon Dread and the Paris Incarnon. The Incarnon form doesn't have any headshot multipliers, it deals 1 times damage only. So if you are wanting to utilize a headshot multiplier, then use the base mode. However, we do make use of Longbow Sharpshot and the damage increase is still huge with split flights, so I don't really care much about it. Let's move on to the Paris Incarnon. Evolutions I went for were Guardian's Might, Swift Deliverance, and Elemental Balance. The builds, again, are Sharpshot Gas, Blast Crux, and a Heat build. It's the same story with Dread and everything that I mentioned there. Please feel free to change up the builds to your liking. You do not need to follow all of these exactly. It's just frameworks. To sum up both the Incarnon bows, they are by far the best bows because they have Incarnon adapters, they have big damage numbers, and are incredibly satisfying to use. You choose whichever one you would like. This leads me on to honorable mentions. The Nagantaka is technically a crossbow, I know, but I absolutely adore this weapon from time to time. Its unique trait is its alt fire that basically just mag dumps, and headshot kills will increase the speed of your next reload by 50%. When you pair this with Primary Crux, you can spam the alt fire more than once, allowing for some serious mag dumping, which we all want. It's a slash focused weapon that can be modded for something else if you wanted to. Personally, I went for flat damage, slash, and heat. Here is the main build that I like to show. If you don't want heat, you can drop Hellfire for reload speed to shoot more often. Next up is Evensong. This is Jade's signature weapon, and this bow has a very interesting unique trait. Damage dealt by Evensong's arrows applies 7 stacks of puncture. This reduces the damage output of the affected enemies by 100%, meaning enemies just do not deal damage to you when they're affected by this. It also increases their crit chance taken by 35%, plus you gain a 35% multi-shot buff for you and your allies when you kill them. On top of all of this, the Evensong's charge shot has radial damage of 4 meters and does a ton of damage. Here is the build here, and we also have a support setup for those who want to proc the puncture buff more often. Give this bow a try, it's something different. For my final thoughts to wrap up this video, bows are really fun. Once you sort out the projectile speed issues, they feel a lot better. The nice thing about bows is while they may not be applying as many status effects as other weapons because they're slow, single firing weapons for the most part, it actually makes them a perfect option for something like gas because they hit so hard. The one piece of advice I can give is try avoid modding for viral or corrosive or any secondary element. This is because of how slow firing they are, so you really just want to focus on one damage over time element that can proc more often and then reserve viral or corrosive for your companion or a primer. If you've never been interested in bows, I think you should give them a try, and these are the ones that I would recommend. They are a lot better than you may think. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, a massive thank you to our channel members. I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you, it really helps. I will see you all in the next video.